So thank you for coming back to try to finish this block about the European Health Data Space of the IHE Experience Days. So we had 6 very interesting presentations, and I will try to somehow gather up all the informations and then I will ask the speakers to join us here so that we can make a discussion between the speakers, of course, but also, most importantly, with the audience. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of questions and a lot of clarifications that will be needed. So, I'm Alexander Berler. I'm the IHE Catalyst Business Development Director, so I'm helping all these events and these testing events to happen in real life, and trying to organize a little bit our thoughts. Things have been happening in the last 30, 40 years in the health IT domain, and now we are at the final stage, I think, where we are able now, with the technology that we have, to exchange any information, even at the cross-border level. So the vision of the European Health Data Space now and the exchange format can be really be implemented. Probably 10 years ago or 15 years ago, this wouldn't be possible, technically speaking. So where we are moving is in a community of connected people, devices, healthcare systems. So this is where we are going to go. So that's the overall vision. We heard in different presentations the important role of the European citizens and the patients. So, and there have been several studies funded by the European Commission to try to prove that the citizens really want to have the control of their data. And I think the data space, on one hand, is about that. So let's discuss this feature. In order to be able to move information between points, we obviously need to move information in a structured way also between our own nations. Otherwise, how can we move them cross-border? So the idea is creating these health information networks or the electronic healthcare records. Each member state has its own vision and organization of how this should work. But more or less, this is the concept, to connect the distributed sources of information. The other part of the vision of the European Health Data Space is obviously we need to gradually move from ideas to try to structure them in a way that potentially we can have conformance statements, we can somehow certify that all these systems can be work together and interconnectedly exchange information. So this is a process that the European level is happening not only at the level of the European Health Data Space, but we see similar approaches in the medical device regulation, in the cybersecurity, and this act that ENISA as an agency is working on, and all these things. So it's a global approach within the European Union to go there. We had this very nice presentation from Label to Enable, about for some reason, the slide didn't move exactly as you had it, but you get the picture. The idea is that we also need to think about the mobile health and wellness application. It's part of our ecosystem, and it's even more growing. And in order to do this, from what we have seen and worked with, especially in the early stages of the My Health at EU service, when we're conceiving this, we need obviously to use standards. We need to be able to split them into use cases. In fact, this is what we did in the My Health at EU. We started with patient summary, prescription, lab reports. So it's a way of slicing the complexity and create this wave approach. And in all this thing, obviously, we need to put the testing parameter. And that's something that is really embedded in the governance model of My Health at EU service. And probably it should remain as a cornerstone part in the implementation of the European Health Data Space. And I guess this is really the place where this community of people here at IHE could really help make this happen, as it was supportive, and it's still supportive of the My Health at EU service. So if we refine the e-health interoperability framework, at the end of the day, we see that the interoperability part, the specifications, the electronic exchange format that expand the e-health in the past, are trying to create, it's really influencing a great deal of this model of interoperability. And at the end of the day, if we manage to create and agree on those common grounds of specifications, the European Exchange Healthcare Record Data Exchange Format, then we are able to influence all the ecosystems from what the vendors will create, what the member states will request, and this is a cycle that, as has been seen with the My Health at EU service, it's a recurring cycle that you have to do it every year and extend it and extend it. So I borrowed a slide of Anderson about the complexity of the formats, so that's also an issue that we have to deal. And in the regulation, the Gravitate project, it's in the corner of all this, but it has a very specific, let's say, importance about how can we bring, together with Unicom, I guess, the medication part in a structured way that is both useful for the clinicians and the pharmacists, because they are both part of the community, and the patient, of course. So with all that, we have been playing and creating since at least 2019, if my memory is correct, about the concept of the European exchange format. So 2 of the documents are already fully blown into production, the patient summary, the prescription, and dispensation. And IHE Health played a little bit and created the first version of those for the medical imaging, the lab reports, and the discharge reports. That now we are getting into the serious game of how do we move this and implementing it in real life. And as Professor Schiza said, we need to go beyond the My Health at EU service. We need to make it this is a common standard for all users and vendors to reuse. So I won't get in the details of the European Health Data Space Regulation. Aurora presented it very well. What are the main goals out of that? And just trying to close this introductory section about the discussion part, I think the important thing is not to forget that in all this, we will need, and we can discuss it just after, to don't forget about the testing continuum. And as we've seen, we saw that there are this concept of testing before putting into production is really, really important. And this is where I think the IHE community could be of a great help. You can see what's happening below. I guess you went to a VIP tour, or if not, there's still one happening at the end of this today's sessions. Now, the concept of the project, I think, is something that is widely used and growing constantly to try to orchestrate specification in a way that they can be testable and implementable. And as IHE, we are already supporting 2 streams of testing, one for the DigiSanté and the My Health at EU service, and one for DigiDigit and the once-only principle. So that's not only about healthcare. And it's very important to have a digital strategy. And this is the slide, a slide describing the one that My Health at EU service is using. And it's very important to ensure that this goes correctly in the implementation strategy. So I would like to invite the speakers to join us so that we can start the discussion. So initially, it's not easy to start such a discussion. There are so many things to discuss, right? So to try to facilitate a little bit, I just made one slide with some potential questions. We are not, we don't probably need to reply to all of them. So at least I would like for the moment to give the floor to each one of you, starting in the order of presence, starting by Aurora, right? So that you pick which one you would like to talk, and then I will pass the floor to the audience, and then we can come back to the questions if we still have more time to continue the discussion. So I guess the left part is a little bit more on the European context, I would say, while the right side is a little bit more on the how are we going to do it and how can we work, and also a little bit aligned with, because we are hosted here an event of IHE, how the ecosystem of IHE could be somehow supportive in all this, and how to advance, So, yeah. Aurora?
Yes, thank you.
Yours. Thank you.
Okay. Having a little bit trouble seeing the questions, but okay. I think I'll take the first ones then to kick off the discussion. So talking about the prerequisites for the European health data space, I think it all comes down to the willingness. As you heard in today's session, there are many different streams that are all working towards the European health data space. And we see, as Clara said, it's 98% of the same people. The willingness in those people is there, but we need a general overall European willingness to really harvest the potential of health data. And I think with the pandemic and with the mobility of people, we are getting there. So definitely a lot more work to be done. Very grateful for you all to organize the event, given that this is also giving us the platform to tell about you the projects, but also that the European health data space is not just some weird foreign Brussels regulation, and it, because at times it can feel like that. But as I hope you saw today, there are actually concrete parts of it that we have already implemented, and we are in the process of implementing and working on. So for the benefit of the EU. So hopefully we can move towards from this, and keep having these discussions, keep reminding all of us why we are doing this, and how can we do this together.
Thank you. Anderson?
Thank you now, and as you put like an Expand EH question, I will think that I will go for this one. So Expand EH is growing, it's providing tools for the adopting of the electronic health record exchange format. What actions can we perform for cross-project collaboration? So first of all, it is one of the actions that the Expand EH is currently doing, is to mobilize another projects that you are working on the electronic health record exchange format in different ways, and also try to put them together. So in this month, we start in some collaboration with some projects, as Label to Enable was one of these projects, and also Joint Action 09. Sorry, I always forgot the name of the joint action, with Professor Huskizes. And this is a kind of the action that you need to do, is basically to involve the other projects, engage the other projects that are working in the same direction, and also how to know what they are doing, what are the products, what are the outputs, and how you can reuse this data that they are producing, and also move forward in a more continual way. Because if different projects do different results, but like moving in different directions, we get basically a loss of energy. But if you focus this energy of the projects and try to move in the same direction with a common goal, I think that we can achieve a lot, not just for it. And also, in order to complement, to do a complement about it, and also to increase this collaboration, we're starting to organize in European Electronic Health Record Exchange Format expert forum that will be held on the 12th of December in Brussels. We don't have the venue yet, but like we have the date and the times. And this meeting is basically have the vision to have different projects among the Europe that you are working with the electronic health record exchange format, also related thematics, in order to collaborate and know each other, and also move forward and try to have like a chain of the results of the project. So I believe that the Expand EH results can also be beneficial to other projects that can collect it and move forward. And I believe that this could be the life cycle of the European projects on the health landscape, let's say so. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess Professor Skizas, you can say a few things more, since very soon you will take the lead in a lot of exercises.
Thank you. I will start with an observation which I made some time ago. We've been trying to do the patient summary for many years. It took us many years and a lot of money. And suddenly we are facing, when we come to implementation, with the international patient summary. This, can we find a solution there? Because at the local level, I prefer the international patient summary because I have it's fire compliant, etc. So I can easily do it locally. But when it comes to European, I have to change and support the patient summary we work for many years. So that's a real problem when it comes to implementation. Can we solve this at some stage? Second, standards. I very much, how can IHE help to fast track adoption? Well, it's already, to my judgment, it's doing a lot, especially for countries that they don't have standards. We heard yesterday that Netherlands is doing their own, took their own because they're advanced and they can afford to do so. Countries that are at the beginning, they would very much like to use standards like IHE or facilities to speed up the process. So how do we facilitate? Third, joint actions are very good tools and facilities to bring nations together, and countries like Estonia are up here, countries like etc. we know are down here. How can we bring this together? We don't want to slow down Estonians and wait for some of the countries to catch up, because we're going to lose the whole. How do we facilitate this? We suggested, for example, in the joint action to run a number of pilots. It would have been more complicated, of course, to have the pilots, because it would have been a huge project. But we actually need to do exercises like we do with MyHealth.eu, the patient summary exchange, e-prescription exchange. And I wonder why big countries are not ahead. They are so slow in catching up with the patient summary and e-prescription exchange. Can we, some people, some decision makers help everybody come together and pass this first test? And last, what I have decided to do locally is to build on the MyHealth.eu e-prescription and patient summary exchange, and say locally that this is going to be my first electronic health record exchange at national level, and offer them a primitive, at least, electronic health record, which is very important. Patient summary is not the summary. It contains many vital information, but have it fully implemented across. Not wait for the regulation, the European Health Data Space regulation, to agree fully, and then start thinking about implementing the whole electronic health record. Therefore, offer to the citizens something practical. They are fed up with us saying we are doing this, we're doing this project, the other project, this project. I say, okay, do them, get money, bring, but what do I get? A doctor, I'm a patient, give me something tomorrow of all this work. I don't want the whole picture. Give me something, a doctor, to get the summary, a citizen that is in need. Give me this at the national level, and then I will listen to you for the rest. Sorry, I think I talked too much.
Thank you. So, Petra, what is your view and your role in all this?
I thought I would be creative and combine two. So how does your project contribute to the EHDS and the cross-community ecosystem? To start with the project ecosystem, I offered Gravitate Health to assess their app. we're talking end of this week already, because you have labeling of consumer digital health products. And I'm trying to have dinner here with Professor Skitzos, because of course he's looking at labeling as well. So there are a lot of connections, and it's good if we employ them and make sure that that the whole ecosystem benefits. How does your project contribute to the EHDS? I think that going forward, and we're doing currently a What's Success of Labeling in 5 to 10 years effort, which is called backcasting. So where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years, and then how do you get there? And we involve the different stakeholders there. So it's a multi-stakeholder effort. And what we see in 5 to 10 years, there is a real benefit for all the different stakeholders on having more hybrid care, using far more the potential that there is in technology. However, you do need to have something that, what is the good health technology? Because you don't want to, garbage in, garbage out is an old way of putting it. You would like to have the good products. And so, yes, we're applying to be the label for the EHDS. Labeling for wellness apps, but also, as you see in the medical community, in time, the medical device related apps, and that is already actually part of the preamble. It does say a cascading effect into medical devices. So we hope to have a long-term footprint in the EHDS in such a way.
So, I will try to do something that I hope is not too ambitious, that is try to at least give a hint to all of the questions, if not most of them. So, on the EHDS part, I would say that the major strength of the project is also one of the lessons that we've learned from my health at EU, and one of the biggest challenges, which is the heterogeneity. And this is, and I don't want to get too philosophical on this, it's in two sides. First, on the technical tools, which are one of the greatest strengths, and we have rely on FHIR, IPS, and standards like that, and of course, IHE, but I will get to that. On the other side, the human willingness, which I think it's the cornerstone of every successful project. And in this case, it's very interesting to see how the stars are aligning. I told you I don't want to get too philosophical, but the willingness of different sets of entities and players that are aligning to see, well, the FHIR API and trying to translate this into a convenient and interoperable format is key. And so this is kind of the goal that is driving all of these projects, and it's getting more and more entities to join in. So that's wonderful. And of course, this is also a major challenge, because we have the main general goal, but sometimes we have to align expectations and priorities of each entity, and that's super normal. And it takes us back to that old saying that if we want to go fast, we have to go alone, but if we want to go far, we have to go together, and I think that's the embodiment of that saying. Regarding the digital health market, just a little hint, and I hope that some of you that are interested in this can, later on we can debate on it, is that the lenses, that layer of personalization of the API can also be driven or be applied to a digital market, and having apps that support these kind of lenses, and this is where things get interesting, because, like I said, this is virtually endless or infinite. On the IHE side, I think the IHE for Gravitate has been an essential player, especially the pharmacy domain, because we have to take that knowledge that is already being developed and is being developed at the moment, and we try to align our expectations, goals, and mission with the data that is already being provided by IHE, and how can we, for example, align prescription, dispense, and this medication workflow to the API, which is more regulatory, more clinical, in a way that tries to empower patients, empower the clinical support systems and clinical workflow as a whole, and of course, the regulatory system. So this part of trying to take the project to the streets, as a matter of saying, and get industry, regulators, patients, and clinicians to gather around into a single project and see, okay, this is, and we've seen these PowerPoints are all very beautiful. At least I took a long time preparing mine because I wanted to make it beautiful, but they are just words. And when we take these things to the execution part, sometimes we see things that we don't like, which is some kind of hurdle that we didn't expect. But when we see things actually working out from end to end, it's a beautiful feeling. Again, with a philosophical note to the end. But I think it's truly important. And that's it.
I think most questions have been answered. But maybe just one idea, what is the prerequisite for the successful adoption of EHDS is that the EHDS will provide good and practical and implementable rules for everybody. We must remember that EHDS is not going to be created by us here, maybe with the exception of Aurora, but not even her, but by politicians. Currently, EHDS is being negotiated by politicians. And we, who are working at the My Health at EU or other initiatives, need to bring the experience to those politicians to make sure that the rules are really practically implementable and that the goal of EHDS will be achieved. There are many lessons learned that we know from capacity building to others, but we really need to make sure that all these lessons learned go to the decision makers, because if we have an opt-in mechanism for secondary use, or for some even for primary use, we know that on the outside it looks great. An informed patient will make their own decision, but we know in real life that is not going to work, and we're not going to have the aim of EHDS as we want. Another thing, a third-party certification of EHR systems. On the outside, it looks great. Every EHR system will be certified by an independent third party, and we'll be sure that they're all safe and everything. But in real life, most probably it will be so complicated and expensive that will not work in real life. So we need to make sure that we bring everything that we have learned to those negotiators to make sure that everything that we have learned, especially the fact that EHDS will not happen by itself. It will not happen by magic. We already right now have so many plans and needs that we need to do, and the capacities on the side of member states and also of the Commission are not so great, that we already know that the capacities at this time are already low, and when EHDS comes, multiply by whatever you want, but it'll be much, much higher. So that's also something that we need to stress, make sure that EHDS, we want it, I think EHDS is an important thing for us to work, but we need to make sure that it will be implementable and will not be just something that will be there and we'll be saying, yeah, but, so that's for my side.
So thank you, Clara, thank you all. That was the first round. Now, I would like to give the floor to the audience. And so first is, please introduce yourself just to be sure that everybody, we know each other, but just in case.
Hello, my name is Jan Hulek. I'm the IHE user co-chair. I started to formulate the question, what should be the recommendation to the local e-health communities as in start to work on now? And then what Clara said, I've extended that in my head. What should be the message to the ministers of health, as in it will come, start working now, and those should be your priorities. I wrote down, have a testing continuum set up, cherish IHE National Deployment Committee, align current investments with what will be ahead, and transfer local standards to to the European ones. But is it possible to start to work on such a cookbook to say to the local communities, and also as you say, the politicians start working on those priorities now?
I guess Anderson could say a word, since his project is basically about spreading the word, and maybe Professor Schizas could say a few, but all the other, feel free to respond.
Exactly. No, exactly. Thank you for the question. But I believe that the message that I would like to convey with the different stakeholders, the other ones, is basically, since we have the recommendation of the European Commission for some the format, and also the struggling that my health you have politicians, the other points, I think the point is basically to try to follow the recommendations that are already in place. Health Network has released some recommendations for implementation, the guidelines from patient summary, e-prescription, patient laboratory results, and other ones. In those recommendations are already all the technical, not all the technical specifications, but all the specifications that must be following in order to have like a more common format. I think like it should be one of the points. And also try to create one community that informs the politicians what is the advantage or disadvantages to use a format or another, and also try to create a community, really engage the community, because until now we have basically developers and politicians defining what should be the format, what should be the main points. Rarely the information about the clinicians, the patients, and the other stakeholders on this community are taken into consideration. So I think that it is time to try to have like a more convergent approach in order to go beyond not just recommendations, but also one product or one service that be implementable and useful for the population. Because like in the end of the day, this is an advantage for the citizens and also the patients. But like sometimes during the development, you don't see too much it. So it's the time to consider all the different stakeholders and also try to create one service that is really meaningful for the population. Thank you.
I would maybe say, just to add, I don't think it's a good idea for countries to be waiting for a cookbook. There's a lot of information out there. If you read the EHDS, it's long, it's complicated, but the basic things which are coming are clear. They're not out of the blue. It's something that has been worked on, many pilots, many projects. So the information is out there, and each country is at a different stage, a different situation. So they need to sit down and say, this is coming, this is what we have, this is what we need to do. And nobody will tell you what to do. It won't be the commission, it won't be any projects. It's just a homework that each country has to do on their own level.
I really like the cookbook analogy, and since, as Clara said, there will not be a cookbook per se, but at the Commission we also are currently investing into capacity building, so to help the member states help each other, because it cannot be through the end the Commission who will give the member states the knowledge, but with the cross-country sharing of the experiences, sharing of the best practices, sharing information in all the different categories, so the data quality, the legislation, the policy part. So with the capacity building project that has now lifted off, we hope to give the member states at least cooking classes.
Well, perhaps within the Label to Enable project, we have multi-stakeholder workshops. And the next one will be about the roadmaps of the different stakeholders. So if we want to get there in 5 to 10 years, how do we get there? And what's each role in it, and where are you dependent on somebody else? So a bit of the cookbook, or yeah, at least the directions and things that need to be done, and who's the equipped stakeholder to do it is being mentioned. What I am trying to get across, it can, if you use word like health apps, it can be something like a distant phrasing. But if you go back at least to where my drive is, my late husband died of a brain tumor, and there are apps out there that can help you monitor your symptoms when you have cancer. and people live 5 months longer with more quality of life and less hospitalizations. And in fact, even the ones that were less skilled with computers, they benefited more. That was research in 2016. And now it's 2023 and it's not common practice. And I hope that with the things that we're doing, that we keep in mind those individual stories. And we all have our individual stories. And that is also a driver towards being ready and making sure that we all benefit in our own particular way.
I think you talk about politicians. Indeed, politicians have a short-term, they want short-term wins everywhere. This project is a long-term win. So we have to somehow not cheat the politicians, but find a way to make them happy, but at the same time, us do our job. And I think the wise thing that the European Health Data Space is providing us is Article 10, believe me. This application or decision-making must be done by an independent body, not the ministries. It's the National Digital Authority must be powerful to, because it's not a political body, it's decision-making, it's by law, and if we support this, and I know from experience, if we support this body, then we'll be able to do things. But if we, everything we want to do is subject to the decision of the Minister of Health, it will be a failure. Because it decides, why do we want this? Tell me from the beginning. And they change everything. This is my long, believe me, I am old enough to tell you the truth. Ministers, they have all the good will, but they fail to see the big picture. They want tomorrow to go for a campaign to win the elections. This is not, it doesn't work in our, for our long-term aspirations for providing to the citizen an interoperable electronic health system, cross-border healthcare, etc. These are long-term objectives, and we are fighting, and things are changing. Therefore, work on this. When I entered the European Health Data Space discussion at the presidency, everybody was talking about opt-in. Most of the countries were opt-in. And with discussions and discussions at that level, now we have all of the countries with the opt-out. With an opt-in, we didn't have any chance to do any interoperable or any real application for secondary use, for example. I mean, if you opt-in, you might decide to opt-in when you are 50 years old, and all your data before will be lost. In our law, the moment one is born, we have to create an electronic health record with federal data there. And everybody is there, and we have the opt-out. It's a very positive step. I experienced at the level of the discussion of the European Health Data Space regulation that most countries were convinced that the opt-out will give the solution. Otherwise, we were wasting our time. Isabel is not here, but are you here? That was a big issue, and now everybody is talking about opt-out. Is the truth. So it's a positive step. Therefore, we must work on these principles before we hope that the politician will give the solution. Thank you.
So, any additional questions? We still have 10 minutes. There's one there from Chris Carr.
Alexander, just to, before finalize, if you have time, I would like to challenge also to answer the 30 question of the debate, but all the Palestinians, I think that could be a good ending of the session.
Which one?
The third one.
The third one?
What?
The cross-community
left?
ecosystem, you mean?
Yes, the barriers and challenges.
The?
Barriers and challenges.
Barriers and challenges, okay. So.
I can defer my question to discussion afterward if you guys want to address
No, please.
Okay. Mine may be a level of detail farther down from the conversation so far, but I'm interested in the exchange format, and in particular in the incorporation of the imaging report in exchange format. And I'm interested in the processes by which, I'm imagining that the exchange format intends to provide some level of structured data, consistent structured data, and that there is a process for making that incrementally more consistent and more structured. And I'm interested in what that process is. So first of all, my question is that assumption correct, that that is the intent of the exchange format? And then can you describe the processes by which the structure of the components of the record in the exchange format are being determined and how that will proceed over time? Is that too detailed a question, or is that appropriate for this group?
I don't know, Petra, maybe.
I'm sorry, I thought it was
Yeah, it is.
The structure is already being created. That's what we're working on. It will not be anything new. It will just be developed. Of course, the structures of new use cases also, but we already have something now. The structure, the data sets, which will be the mandatory. The structure of the data sets of the new use cases are being created right now. So by the time EHDS comes and all the projects will end, I think we will already have a pretty good idea of what the structure of the mandatory categories of the EHR data or of the EHR looks like. How will it function into the future? Well, that will depend on what the EHDS governance will give us, what instruments and what let's say the organizational path will be forward. That depends. But I think by the time EHDS comes around, with the help of the initiatives and with what it's being created right now, we will have a pretty good idea on what the structure will be like.
Thank you.
Let's move then. Yeah, there's two questions here.
The first question talked about willingness between or among politicians and how you go about that. But I was wondering, how do you get willingness at the more local level, and why should local vendors or users care about joining European initiatives? So how do you bring that message across?
It's very difficult. And I think I will not be speaking just for my country, but it's very global. But I think that's one of the barriers, and I don't want to say barriers, but challenges into the future, to explain to the local level of what will EHDS bring, because there will be questions, and there are always questions. Why should the smallest healthcare providers be fulfilling all these rules, which will be quite challenging for them, very, very difficult. So that's really one of the main challenges which we're facing right now, even at My Health at EU, because we need to be explaining this. We need to be providing a helping hand to these healthcare providers, because they will not do it by themselves. We can't even expect that. So we need to be from the national level, even from the European, but especially from the national level, providing them with tools, guidelines. I don't know, it really, again, depends on each country, because you have different I think someone was speaking about heterogeneity. We have so many different systems, centralized, decentralized, partially centralized. You have so many data sources. So this really depends, but this, what you're saying, is one of the main challenges we have even right now, to communicate the services and to design the services with the input of the stakeholders. Because we're already doing it, but we're not doing it enough. We need those end users, healthcare providers, any stakeholders, patients who are working with this, to be kind of, to drag them into the design of the services. And it's very difficult, it's not easy to be doing that, but that's one of the challenges that we have now, and also communicating it and have the communication kind of both directional, not just advertising and marketing and saying you have to do this and you have to do that, but we need to do it bidirectionally. But yes, that's one of the one of the big challenges into the future.
And in addition to the healthcare workers, it's also the initiative from the patients to use the services, so that we don't create these services just for the sake of going to the office and getting work done and then checking off milestones. So to really bring that vision to the patient level as well, and to gain their trust, so that they would trust us with their health data. So tying to that, was it the third question? So what the barriers and challenges? It is in building that trust, and with that, to show the end users, so in that case the citizens or the patients, what are the main benefits for them. And I would truly believe it's easier to communicate on the primary use level, so where the patient can go to a different country, buy their medications, get their images, get their patient summary, but it will be a little bit tougher to communicate the secondary use, because it is something that seems so abstract. And to have the patients trust and to have them trust with their data for the secondary use, and not to opt out of that system. So thanks.
Well, in answering this question, the first attempt was to get on board the patients and the patients' associations. I mean, they helped tremendously in our efforts to bring the benefits to them. We soon realized, of course, that the biggest enemies, if you like, are the healthy people. They never think, in general, that one day they might be sick. So you have to bring this awareness to them that, look, it's not the patients' association's job. It's for everybody. And to do this, we try to promote the idea of investing in health to avoid illness. That's a big challenge, to invest in health to avoid illness, and this slowly worked and made people aware that one day them or their relatives, they might need help. And this is one. At the third level, we want to make them aware that these things cost a lot. Because they cost a lot, as taxpayers, you have to bear this cost for a society that wants to be fair and wants to treat people. So that's the last level to build on, that it's a costly exercise. And by adopting all these stories we say in the project, it's going to save money. When you do this, it's going to save money. People are aware. They say, okay, let's save money. And there is an exercise in Europe. It worked out about 11 billion, something like that, if you apply the European Health Data Space regulation, something like that. For my country, it was about 250 million a year, which is a lot. So you challenge them that way, that we're going to save money. When you start doing this, you have other hidden enemies, pharmaceuticals, people that produce equipment and in health, and they are trying to prove you wrong. So the battle is multifunctional. So you have to be aware, because you do something and something else comes up as an excuse, and you say, why are these people resisting? Why are doctors' associations are resisting? And then you find out that they are associations that are driven by not so good doctors, right? Because they're good doctors, they will support you fully when you tell them that you have readily available the health data. But other doctors, they don't want this. They will say, okay, why should I be challenged? Because I didn't know about the health state of this citizen when I was admitted to my hospital. And then you realize that it's an enemy. Therefore, my friend, it's a long battle. You have to look, be aware, and how you stop all these challenges.
So we have...
Can I just
Yes.
something? For discussion's sake, very brief. To your point, to the vendors, let's put it in a simpler mental framework, what drives independent vendors or not regulators or institutional bodies, it is they will do something like that because it's easy or because it will bring money. That's basically it. One, can we make it easier for implementing? It's easier in theory, practice not so much. Can we try at least provide the message that this will bring money because it will enable internationalization, it will align with global or at least European projects, and that in the long term will bring money. If we can convey these messages to the vendors, I think we'll be successful, but if it was that easy, it will already be done. So that's it.
Okay, we are almost finished, but we still have 2 questions, and let's see if we in 5 minutes can try to fill them in.
I'll try to keep it short. I think I see a challenge. It's going to take a long time for countries to work and also to get the trust of the local healthcare providers. So how we know it's a dynamic. Standardization is dynamic. You have to invest a couple of times to make it durable. How are we going to keep it agile, this ecosystem? Because there are going to be new innovations, and we have to adapt to that and maybe do redesign on something people already invested in. So how are we going to keep it agile? And you already said a little bit about it, but I just wanted to mention this challenge.
May I ask also that you make your question and I try to reply to both together, so that I think that's the best approach. So
it's anyway not really a question, more a statement or recommendation. I'm Andreas Klingler, vendor co-chair of IHE-Europe, also chair of the Joint Initiative Council, regarding how to move implementation forward. I would have a recommendation. What usually works is peer pressure. So on the comment, representing also a large international vendor, vendors implement something when their customers ask for it. How do you make customers ask for it? If there is demand created somehow, or if customers see, patients see, people of the member states see, well, how many patient summaries do people have in Estonia? Probably not that relevant for a country like Germany, where I'm coming from. But if there would be more information eventually available, how many summaries are available in the individual countries, and then after that, how many of these summaries are also exchanged, and what outcome is created on this. This would help motivate people in countries like Germany, which would be on the very far right side of their timeline, as we know, to really move forward on this, or even build pressure on the politicians to really get going. Because at the moment there's the feeling, well, the situation is bad in every country, so we are not that far behind. The other point, GIC, and based on the GIC, which is where the member organizations of the GIC are one of the main drivers of the international patient summary. And also from the point of the GIC, and also as a big vendor, that Europe is not aligned with that, with the
European patient summary on that is really a little bit of a problem. So hopefully there will be some way eventually to kind of migrate this in this direction. I would have a strong hope for that, and that eventually some timeline is created for that.
So the floor is yours. The remaining few minutes.
I will start, but I will be brief. Yes, the first question, how will the agile improvement and, let's say, the evolution continue? We're not sure. That's the problem. That's what I was speaking about, that right now we have mechanisms set up, we have a governance set up, we are moving forward in an agile way, but already the infrastructure is expanding so much that we're hitting the border. And we still need to move forward, but we're hitting our borders or our capacities. And if EHDS is going to come and it needs to be effectively implemented, we need to find new ways of how to move forward, because there will be continuous development. There will be standards which will be upgraded. Right now, we're at My Health IT, we're doing annual upgrades of the entire infrastructure. It's an upgrade which all operational countries perform in one day, because we can't stop operations, we can't wait 1 week. And that's just, quote unquote, 11 countries, which need to implement the upgraded specification, test them, be approved that everything works, then test with each other, and then upgrade and test again to make sure that everything's working. And as I'm saying, we're doing that in a restricted manner right now. The testing framework, the audit framework. So we need to find ways, and that's up to us and up to us to be projecting the experience, to make sure that who is creating the EHDS will set up a framework, an environment which will be even possible to implement. So there's no definite, at least from my side, answer to your question. It will be a challenge. The pressure which you mentioned, I think into the future will be a pressure between countries. Right now, as Czech Republic, I'm having a very hard time explaining to healthcare providers and to anyone that we need to exchange patient summaries, because we are live with Luxembourg, Malta, Estonia and Portugal, because some people do travel between these countries, but not many. When we implemented patient e-prescription, we're much more successful because we have Poland and we have Croatia, where millions of Czech people spend their summer holidays. So we already have hundreds of e-prescriptions exchanged, more than patient summaries since 2017 when we were live. So definitely into the future, this will be a pressure. I want border countries from Czech Republic to be in the infrastructure, because if so much money and capacity is invested, I need to tell my people this was invested because you can retrieve patient summary in the countries where you travel the most. So this is already difficult right now, and I think into the future it will be even more the pressure will be bigger, because a lot of money, capacity will be invested, and we need really to make those exchanges to be practically explainable to the patients and to the healthcare professionals.
So,
shall I
yes.
briefly, I'll focus on one question, which is how do we keep it agile? If I look at the full scope of just health apps, it's 350,000, and spoiler, they often update as well. So we have a huge market. I'm not saying that we'll buy into the whole market from the very beginning, but what we are trying to do is, with the certification scheme, we are much more agile, because you can change it much more often than a standard. We're checking now with 24 different health apps, how long does it take and how can we make it as efficient and usable as possible. So even on a question basis, we're asking both the app assessor and the app manufacturer, how long did it take you? Is it clear? Is it consistent? We're trying to avoid that you have to do the same thing in 27 and more countries. So a lot of it is built into our process to see how can we improve more, and the assessment methods we're trying to move up to, can we authenticate what has already been done? Can we use automated tooling to make it as efficient as possible where we can? So just a few things on how do we make it agile aware of the context we're in.
Well, we are already.
Do you see a label that will say that the app will have a part of the European health data space, so that you know that a cluster of apps will...
Hold that thought. It's coming. It's called XR.
So I unfortunately we have reached our time limit. That's the issue. Probably next time we have to take for 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe one full day of discussion. So closing this, I hope that it was enjoyable. I think we had a very civilized discussion for Europeans. So that's one of our base qualities, I would say. So let's see how this is going to move.